everybody, welcome to another weekly Firing Pin live stream. My name is Brandon, here as always with my team. We've got Tyler, we've got Pat, we've got some amazing special guests this week, hence why we're all dressed up, right? We've got some very exciting news, potential news maybe. We've got some projections and just a lot of things to talk about, like always. I've got a cool gun to show you, so stay tuned for that. Tyler has giveaways. We've got inventory updates that you are not going to want to miss. So stay tuned throughout this live stream, and you are going to be more informed than you were before. So welcome. I hope everybody's having a great week. I've got this old ammo can sitting up here you might be able to see. That is some very interesting Greek surplus M1 Garand ammo. 30-06 probably from the 50s, I would guess. And yeah, we basically had a gentleman come in and has been collecting for quite a long time. We literally bought a pallet of this ammo from him. So we still have a few tins over there. This tin here, it has 240 cartridges in it. They are loose packed. That's going for $329, which is a really good deal right now for sealed tin. Like that's a sealed spam can of M1 Garand ammo. So if you've got a US rifle caliber 30 M1 sitting at home, buy some food for it. That's the responsible thing to do. Ty, how you doing tonight, buddy? You were just looking so good.
I'm doing well. I'm looking good, right?
You were looking really good.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the weekly gun chat. I appreciate you guys for joining us as always. This giveaway, very valuable. Gold, I would even consider it. Some 8.55, 30 rounds. Check that out. All on stripper clips, all ready for your 10-round magazines. So again, as always, giveaway. Just let me remember your name. Comment, like. As always, you know, sharing posts. That's bonus points in my heart. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot. I mean, we have some awesome inventory updates. I want you guys to stay tuned for a little bit. Trust me, you're gonna want to hear what we got coming in. It's gonna be a little bit, but it's worth it. What else? I feel like I had something else.
Yeah, there's just been so much going on, you know, just day to day. We always have tons of stuff coming in the door. People have been buying guns like crazy. You know, all these reports of gun sales being up is certainly true. I wish we had inventory to meet demand. We certainly do have some stuff, as you can see behind me. We've got a very cool PK-47 for $18.99 if you want to lay down some suppressing fire maybe in your neighborhood, whatever it takes, right? We've got an SKS up there. We've got some shotguns, some semi-automatic shotguns. We've got some pretty cool stuff. We've been getting some handguns in. We've got some SAR-9X from Sarzomaz. They come with a holster and some mags extra with those. Pretty cool. We've got some Glocks. I heard Josh talking to a distributor. I gotta tell you, Josh, as you know, is a huge teddy bear, right? He is just the kindest, gentlest guy here. And he has just been beating up our distributors lately. He's been calling them, being like, look, we spend a ton of money with you guys and our customers need stuff. You gotta sell us some stuff or we're gonna go somewhere else. So he has really been just putting in the time, hitting the phones, hitting the connections. You know, that's why we go to these conferences to schmooze, right, and rub elbows. It's gotta come due sometime, right? So we've been trying everything we can. We've got some Glocks coming. I know we've got, should we talk about the?
Not yet,
Okay, all right. We'll get to what we've got coming. We'll get there. Don't worry. Stay tuned.
Remember what I was going to say, too.
Okay, yeah. Ty, go ahead. Why don't you go ahead?
I'm going to switch back to me if you don't
Sure,
mind.
sure.
Slings and
This is why we got to train with our gear.
Yeah, man.
You can't get caught up in your.
You got to look. Slings, ties.
Worth it.
Guys, I've done so much work trying to get our stream across so many different platforms. Facebook, I love you guys for always watching on Facebook religiously. For some of your friends that don't have Facebook, we have YouTube, always live on YouTube, and now Twitch. Your kids might know about Twitch. We're on Twitch. Please subscribe, like. The more we can get out, the more like people that subscribe to us, the bigger and the better our productions can be. Finally, I have made our own website, thefiringpinllc.com. If you want to browse like all of my, I have to break this, Pew is Life shirts and stuff, Barrett Brandon shirts, all of that stuff. There's a merch store on that website. that's another great location to pick any of that stuff up. Again, thefireandpinllc.com.
Nice. And yeah, all of that money goes right into our efforts to fight the SAFE Act, to fight unconstitutional laws that we are stuck with here in New York. That's a big part of what we're going to be talking about tonight. We've got our partners here, 2A NYS. We've got our lawyer, Jim Ostrowski, who has just been beating up the courts, or beating up New York, I should say, in the courts, and just fighting the good fight and doing all that we can. You know, we have seen that we're not gonna have the SAFE Act go away by putting signs in our yards, right? That's just not gonna work. We've seen that the SAFE Act's not gonna go away through the legislature. They're not gonna act on it. So really, there's two options left. The jury box, right, Steve? And there's one more after that that we're not gonna have to use because we have a lot of faith in our court system, and they're gonna talk about that coming up, and super excited about that. I guess before we get too far and things get too late in the night, I'd like to show you, I wore my classy, outfit, so I'd like to show you a very appropriate classy gun that I thought would be pretty cool to show, that a lot of people don't even know exists, don't know that it's legal, or think it's just something from the movies. This is an R.J. Braverman single shot 25 auto, and like most of the guns that I love in our collection, walked right in the front door. Gentleman owned this for many years and just decided he no longer wanted it, came down, traded it in. So first I'm gonna clear it. So you do that by unscrewing this end piece here, and this is the chamber, the barrel. This is where, everything is contained. Pretty chunky piece of metal. This piece almost weighs as much as the rest of it all combined. 25 auto, one shot. You put your cartridge in, you close it, right? Good to go. And the reason that this is legal is because to fire this gun, you can't shoot it like it is, right? If you could shoot it in pen form, it would not be legal. There's a law, I believe it's in the 1934 National Firearms Act, it might be in the 68 Gun Control Act, that a gun has to look like a gun, right? So R.J. Braverman was like, okay, I'll take that bet. That is basically the loosest, right, children's version of what is a gun. Well, that's a gun, right? So once it is in this configuration, the hammer is now, the trigger is now exposed, and we could shoot it. And I'll admit, this is one of the few guns that I have that is shootable that I haven't shot. I don't know why. We'll have to fix that. Hopefully, maybe before, if people are interested, let me know. Maybe we'll film a YouTube video or something just trying to hit anything. We'll run a drill. Pat can run me through a tactical games drill, right, buddy? That'd be pretty fun.
I'm not sure if we're gonna hit.
Is there a division
we'll give it a try.
for this, right?
Guns without sights on them. Maybe.
It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. So you basically just lift up on this, bang, right? It would have shot, and then that's it. I guess you'd put it between your knuckles. And you'd use it as a little Kobotan, right, or Kobaton, right? Yeah, that's all you got. And then you can take the barrel off, reload. I believe you'd have to lift up, and I haven't used this a ton. I don't want to break it. It's not delicate, but it's not the most, it's not a Glock 19 either. Sure. So pretty cool. I thought it fit well with the suit, right? Very classy.
Looks pretty neat. Kind of James Bond.
Yeah, that's what I thought, right? Trying to class this joint up a little bit. All right, cool. I have talked far too long. Pat is here. The Shepherd's Hook is coming out. We have got some exciting stuff teased up there and a little poster. Pat, we got some, it's like a yoga thing coming up, right? Or what was the? Go ahead.
Tactical game
skirmish.
skirmish.
Yeah.
I think that's what he's referring to, the yoga thing. So November 1st, guys, right? That's going to be a Sunday after Halloween, excuse me. And we are going to be hosting a one-day competition style event where you guys are going to come out and compete in little groups of 5, right? And we're going to put you through various physical challenges as well as some shooting challenges. We're going to be using our AR-15 pattern rifles and our semi-automatic handguns, along with all those plate carriers you guys love so much, and all our high-speed gun belts and stuff like that. So if you guys think you have what it takes to meet that challenge, why don't you come on down here. Early registration is still ongoing as of right now, right, for the first 2 weeks. And it's going to be $99 for the next several 10-ish days, something like that. And then thereafter, it's going to be $120 to go ahead and sign up for that. So why don't you guys go ahead and get registered if you haven't done that already. Without any further ado, I want to bring out Steve Filano from 2A NYS and Jim Ostrowski. So why don't you guys come on up here. Hooray! Steve
Thank you,
looking
Pat.
so good, man.
Yeah, here with the plate carrier tonight.
And there's Jim as well.
Feel a little underdressed, maybe overdressed. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. We got a weird uniform situation going on in here tonight, so whatever. But come as you are, I guess, right?
Exactly. Just want to draw attention to the tactical game skirmish that we have coming up.
For sure.
We do have registrations filling up, especially for intermediate men's division.
Yes.
We have about a squad and a half filled right now. So that's about half capacity for intermediate men's.
Right.
We do have elite men starting to fill up. Division still open for masters, which is men's 45 and up, and also women's. So definitely, jump on the site. You can go to 2amys.com, or you can go to the Firing Pin site, thefiringpinny.com, to go ahead and register. And we hope you come out and join us. And the whole focus of this is to test your skills under stress, right? Like in a combat situation, just having the ability to shoot or just having fitness in a vacuum, one or the other is not going to be enough.
For sure.
This is about bringing those two things together and seeing how your fitness and your gear and your mindset holds up under some intense challenges. So we hope you guys will join us for that.
I'm kind of surprised we haven't had more interest in the women's division as of right now. But hopefully some of the ladies out there will go ahead and change that.
That's right.
I would really like to see some ladies come out and get after it. So
Yeah,
it'll be good.
one of the big focal points of doing this, of having a tactical games branded event, I should mention, we're the Firing Pin is the only range and organization in the entire northeastern U.S. that has an affiliate designation with the Tactical Games, meaning the Tactical Games has placed their faith in the Firing Pin to be able to represent their brand and to do it well. So I think that says a lot. And the other thing that we're trying to do is demonstrate that New York State, despite all of the onerous, unconstitutional civilian disarmament edicts that we have here, we still have AR pattern rifles, we still have semi-automatic pistols, and people here still have the training and the fortitude and the mindset to know how to employ those tools.
100%.
And not just young men in the intermediate men's division or in elite, but even guys 45 and up, and women as well. So we hope that people in those age sets, who agree with that, will jump on, register, and come out and demonstrate that to folks as well.
Absolutely. So why don't you guys give us a little bit of information, a little bit of an update on the lawsuits that we have right now. So I know you wanted to talk a little bit about some of the processes that we are moving through in the court system. So why don't you guys go ahead and roll on into that?
Yeah, I think one of the big things to address right off the bat is the passing, obviously, of Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the U.S. Supreme Court. That is a seismic development from a Second Amendment litigation point of view, and a range of other things too, that really changes, I think, how we'll be looking at Second Amendment court cases going forward. 2020 in general has not been a good year for Second Amendment litigation, and a lot of you have probably seen, who are members of 2AMYS or follow us, have seen a focus shift away from litigation updates and focus on litigation to more training, because I think that's really what's going to make the difference over the long term if you watch what's happening across the country. When we saw the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association case versus New York City get mooted successfully in the Supreme Court, then we saw the dissent from some of the justices on the conservative wing saying the Supreme Court should quickly take up one of the 10. There's, I think, an 11th case as well. That was a 2A case saying that the court should look at any one of those as a new vehicle to really articulate for the public and the nation how far the Second Amendment goes and what it really means beyond the Heller decision from 2008 and McDonald that followed. None of those were taken up. They were all dismissed. We also have a case 2AMYS with Jim Ostrowski. We have a case that's in the Second Circuit currently to invalidate the pistol permitting regime in New York State based on constitutional grounds. We were ruled against in the Second Circuit as well from a 3-judge panel. We're now going to a full en-banc hearing, meaning all the judges of the Second Circuit would now sit for that. We're focused on that now too, but that also is a setback. We were ruled against in the Second Circuit. So my view of that was, frankly, it didn't make sense from my point of view to launch any new cases because there was no Supreme Court Second Amendment case hanging over the head of these lower court judges to compel them to take anything seriously. Now with Ruth Bader Ginsburg out of the fight and new potentially conservative-leaning Federalist Society judges coming into the court based on what we're hearing about Trump's potential pick, that all changes. If Trump does successfully install a true dyed-in-the-wool originalist on the court, that would be a solid conservative majority that would negate Roberts drifting from the left or drifting to the left, as we've seen recently. So it's kind of a whole new ball game here. So with that, Jim, maybe you want to give folks an update starting with our pistol permit challenge case, which is called the Libertarian Party of Erie County versus Cuomo. It's a 5-6-year-old case that has gone through various echelons of the court system. Maybe we start with that real quick. Tyler, if you could maybe throw up that New York State Court graphic, just to give everybody an understanding of sort of the journey that these cases travel. These things start at a very low level, local town, village, or county court, work their way all the way up through a state court, sort of labyrinth, where a Second Amendment case really is not going to get any relief because all of the judges in New York State have been appointed by Cuomo. And Jim has argued cases such as the pork lawsuit case back in 2008, right? Was that the year?
Yeah.
Where appellate court judges, which is the highest court in New York State, essentially agreed with Jim's argument against the governor's economic development scheme, which basically involves Empire State Development laundering money to companies to sidestep the New York State constitutional requirements to not do that. The court agreed with Jim, but still ruled against him because they didn't want to blow up the governor's economic development scheme, even though technically it's not lawful under the New York State Constitution. So throughout the entire state court system, all the way up from these lower level courts to the appellate division, very unlikely you're going to win. So anytime we launch a case, we price that in. We're not going to get any good decisions from a state court judge or any lower courts. We want to get into the federal district courts, such as the Western District out here in Western New York, Erie County, Genesee, like all those counties that make up the 17 county Western District, and then up to the Court of Appeals, the Second Circuit, which covers New York and a range of other northeastern states. Those sit below the U.S. Supreme Court. So if you have that graphic up, Tyler, just let me know.
I do.
So you can see on the screen right now this New York State court graphic. This demonstrates to you all the various wickets basically that a case has to pass through. The two cases we're going to talk about tonight, Erie County Libertarian Party versus Cuomo, which is a challenge to the New York State pistol permitting regime, and another that we're going to talk about that involves the firing pin, Lewis versus Cuomo, which deals with the shutdown orders, the mask orders, and the cancellation of the Second Amendment under the coronavirus emergency decree. All those things have cleared all these wickets. We're beyond the state court system now. Now, Tyler, if you want to just transition to the one that demonstrates the federal court system, which is your next slide. This is where we are right now. So the challenge to the state pistol permitting regime, that is in the Second Circuit Court of Appeals right now. Looking at the graphic on your screen, you'll see we're literally one step away from petitioning to the U.S. Supreme Court for review. And then Lewis versus Cuomo is a step below that in the Western District right now. We'll likely have to appeal that to the Second Circuit as well, and that could potentially make it to the U.S. Supreme Court in addition to the other one we talked about. So you can see how important it would be to have a solid constitutional originalist majority on the Supreme Court to potentially review these cases. I know, of course, the U.S. Supreme Court takes a very small, cases that are petitioned to it for review, but I would encourage everybody to keep in mind that the conservative wing is still pretty upset with New York State for strategically mooting the NYSERPA case, basically through a technicality, taking away the ability of the court to articulate really the right and left limits of what the Second Amendment really allows. So I think that they're going to be looking for another opportunity to really stick it to the legislature and the governor in New York State. And they may use this pistol permit case that we have to do that, because it isn't something that can be mooted, right? You can't just repeal the pistol permitting regime to moot the case. If New York State did that, awesome, then we won, and New York State transitions to a shall issue state or potentially a constitutional carry state. New York probably won't do that, so we're in a situation where we either compel the Second Circuit to rule that way, or we go to the Supreme Court with potentially this newly installed Trump appointee, and if we go there and win, that makes the whole country have to submit to a shall issue regime. So that's where things stand right now. Jim, why don't you talk a bit more about sort of the journey that this pistol permit case took and where things stand right now?
Well, it's a really long story. I'll try to make it short. I have always been, a supporter of the right to bear arms. Even 25 years ago, I wrote an article for the Mises Institute, and when And I remember writing an article in the Buffalo News before Heller saying that the Second Amendment protects an individual right to bear arms. And some of the boys downtown in the law profession kind of laughed at me and said, you know, there you go again. But obviously Heller did hold that, and Heller was correct. And I took a look at the New York pistol permit law, compared it to Heller, and I said these do not square because Heller, the pistol permit law is much stricter than Heller allows. And basically in New York, it's a very onerous process to get a permit. Some counties are better than others, but some counties are much worse. And in New York City, it's almost impossible. So we did challenge it in court a number of years ago in the federal court in Rochester. And the case is dragged through the courts. It's not really our fault. The first judge that had it took a long time, and we were thinking, well, maybe he's going to rule in our favor, but he ultimately did not. Then we went up to the circuit, as you said, Steve, and that got delayed because of the NYSERPA case. And when we drove all night to get there, and the panel, it was an interesting oral argument, because normally I'm up against it in court, but the three judges at that point realized that there's 5 judges in the Supreme Court who probably agree more with me than with them. Unfortunately, that case was mooted. And I'll just tell you really quick, the Attorney General wrote a quick letter to the court saying, well, rule in our favor. And I wrote a letter to the court saying, no, you should rebrief everything. Why? Because we had the unconstitutional lockdown, which is the subject of the other case, which proved what we said in our complaint, that tyranny is possible in America, and that's why we need the right to bear arms. Also, the George Floyd riots took place, which showed that the police are really not capable of protecting us. They protected government property. In fact, in New York, in Buffalo, the courthouse was damaged, which has not been widely reported, even though the police were guarding it. And we also pointed out that they're trying to defund the police. So I said to the court, in light of these radical changes in the situation, we need to rebrief this whole case, because everything we said in our complaint, including the fact that there are innocent Americans who are killed by the police every year, somewhat prophetic that we pointed that out. And so we asked for the rebriefing, but alas, the Second Circuit rejected that request and affirmed the decision based on a very lenient standard, which in our petition for review, we said, well, that's basically Breyer's dissent from Heller. Breyer's dissent from Heller said, well, we do a very lenient balancing test, and we uphold, basically we're going to uphold the law. And what the argument we've made is this intermediate scrutiny test, not to get it all legalese, is basically designed to affirm all gun control laws.
Really
So,
quick,
sure.
too, maybe we take people through the balancing tests that are applied to Second Amendment cases, and all cases that deal with constitutional civil rights in a court. And the holy grail for Second Amendment cases would be either a strict scrutiny analysis or something even beyond that, which would be a text and tradition type analysis, which is what Justice Brett Kavanaugh talks about and prefers to apply to the Second Amendment. So you've got rational basis, which is a very low-level means of review, which basically rubber stamps everything. If the state hints at some type of compelling interest to public safety or some other interest that the state may have on behalf of the population that it's supposed to serve, then it passes muster. Then you have intermediate scrutiny, which is a little bit more heightened than that. Actually, one of the attorneys who argued, or was runner-up to argue the Heller case that we've had on a previous live stream at 2 a.m.ys, said he doesn't believe that New York State, although the courts profess to apply intermediate scrutiny in 2A cases, that they don't. They actually generally apply rational basis. But intermediate scrutiny is a little bit of a more heightened test. Basically the court looks at, does the impingement that we're looking at actually impact the Second Amendment? If yes, then we apply a little bit more scrutiny here. But generally, we've seen by and large, in almost every case, the state courts all the way up to the appellate division will side with the state when it comes to a Second Amendment case. Then we have strict scrutiny, which severely limits the government's ability to impinge on a right. And if they do impinge on that right, they have to prove that they're doing so in the least restrictive means possible. So something like, let's say, a blanket ban on a certain type of gun, like let's say an AR pattern rifle, or a blanket ban on a certain class of equipment like a standard capacity magazine. That's not the least restrictive means of achieving the government's end of ensuring public safety. So something like the SAFE Act would fail under a strict scrutiny basis, under that standard of review. Or text and tradition, we would look at what the founders actually meant at the time of the founding when they wrote the Constitution. Obviously, once again, something like the SAFE Act would fail under that standard of review as well. So one of the things we're after, that we're chasing in all these court cases, is to compel New York State to apply strict scrutiny or above. Because under that standard of review, all the various gun control edicts that we have in New York would fail.
Yeah, so you try to get through it because it's somewhat complicated, but try to simplify it. So on August 11th, the Second Circuit ruled against us. It was a 3-judge panel. So we had a big decision to make, and you and I talked about this, and the fork in the road was, do we go right to the Supreme Court, or do we go back to the Second Circuit and have the entire court hear it, which would be 13 permanent judges and the 3 senior judges on the panel, that's 16 judges. So we talked about it, and be very honest with the people, because we're very transparent here, we have nothing to hide. We decided that due to the uncertain situation on the Supreme Court, let's go to the Second Circuit first. Let's go back to the Second Circuit. Let's see what develops with the election, with vacancies, with resignations. The future is unpredictable. It's the one thing we know about human affairs. But also, President Trump has appointed 5 judges to the Second Circuit.
Correct.
Let's find out what those judges think of the Second Amendment.
Right.
Let's find out sooner rather than later. And I'm very hopeful that they'll agree with our view of the Constitution. So we filed a petition, a very hard-hitting petition to the Second Circuit, which among other things cites a short book that I wrote called The Second Amendment Works, which was written, this case has gone on so long, I wrote a book during the middle of it. One of the reasons I wrote the book was we're up against the Bloomberg Foundation, we're up against the Gabby Giffords Foundation, and they're citing all these studies, and I believe, I've read all the studies and I think they're all bogus. But I started to think, well, why don't we put instead of playing defense, let's go on the offense and say, look, the Second Amendment works if you understand its purpose, which really doesn't have that much to do with, let's say shooting a burglar.
Right.
That may be a secondary purpose of the Second Amendment, to allow you to defend yourself. The primary purpose of the Second Amendment is to deter government tyranny. And this is our main contribution, what we're doing on a grassroots basis that some of the big firms and some of the big gun groups are not doing. We're right in your face, and you've been there in Rochester when I talked about, hey, democracy's great, public assembly's great, but down in Venezuela they're shooting protesters. I said that in Rochester. I said to Judge Kearse in the Second Circuit, you can talk about elections being enough, but what if they cancel the elections, Judge? And of course you can't ask the judges questions, and I was only asking that sort of as a rhetorical question, but the judge didn't ask any further questions on that point. But in the book, we talk about how if you understand the purpose of it, let's look at some of the empirical data. We don't have overthrow of the government in the United States. Why? Because if they overthrew the government, the people wouldn't accept it. And in these banana republics and third world countries, and the statistics are in the book, where there are a lot of coups, there's an instability of the government. Why? Because the generals know, they take over the presidential palace, we've seen it in the movies, they take over the TV and radio station, the internet now and these days, and they own the country because the citizens have no ability to respond. The shooting of unarmed demonstrators is very common in countries other than the United States, and we did have some shootings in the 60s, but what I'm talking about is the mass murder of hundreds of people, like in the Hungarian Revolution, mowed down with automatic machine guns, and the examples are in the book. There's actually two incidents called Bloody Sunday. It's all in the book. So in the petition, we actually cited the book because it was really written for the purpose of helping our litigation and also explain to people that the Second Amendment does work. So it's very hard hitting. And the point, a really important analytical point we make, is that the courts have basically ignored the government tyranny argument. And therefore, they've shortchanged our argument. Because if you're going to have a balancing test, whatever the balancing test is, if it gives zero weight, and I said that right on page 4, you're giving zero weight in your balancing test, the intermediate scrutiny test,
right,
which is really kind of, in my opinion, rigged to make sure we lose. If you're giving zero weight to the purpose of the Second Amendment, what kind of a litigation is this? It's nonsensical. So we're trying to get the court to recognize that the government tyranny argument is the reason why we have a Second Amendment. And if whatever test you're going to come up with to evaluate gun laws has to factor in the government tyranny argument. And frankly, if that's done, it's going to sweep away all the case law that has deprived us of the right to bear arms. And they're going to have to come up with a new formula that does factor in the value of widespread civilian ownership, which deters burglary when the occupant is at home, for example, like they have in Great Britain, because they have more strict gun control laws. You actually have, the burglars go right into the house when the people are there. The widespread gun ownership deters foreign invasion. We haven't really had a foreign invasion since 1812. And by the way, the militia was a factor, and civilian ownership of guns was a factor. That authority, the militias, historians who believe in centralized power and so on, progressive historians, they tend to minimize the role of the militia. It's not true. And even I just listened to a biography of George Washington while I was traveling around in the car, and he wasn't a big fan of the militia. We all know this. He preferred the standing army, but he credited the militia with winning key battles in the southern area of the war and forcing, was it Cornwallis up into Virginia for the ultimate surrender at Yorktown. So we're taking a completely new approach to the Second Amendment. We're arguing hardcore right to bear arms. We're explaining the purpose of it. We're providing the empirical data, and this is a different approach. And we'll see how it turns out, but we now have a very interesting situation. This hardcore petition seeking to overturn the New York pistol permit law is pending in the Second Circuit. Now the Second Circuit has to factor in what's the Supreme Court going to look like. The speculation is that Judge Barrett will be named.
Amy Coney Barrett out of the Seventh Circuit.
We were just reading her decision today, which is correct, or dissent, arguing that a mail fraud conviction should not deprive you of the right to bear arms. So she appears to be a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. If she is confirmed, the Supreme Court will go from 4-4 with Roberts
waffling,
right, to now 5-4 pro Second Amendment, with Roberts probably going to join the 5 because he doesn't want to, he's the chief judge. He wants to be on the winning side, generally speaking. So in the Second Circuit has to factor that in. But if the Second Circuit throws our petition out, we're now going. By that time, we assume that Judge Barrett or another pro-Second Amendment Trump appointee will be on the Supreme Court.
Right.
and we're hoping that they will take this case up because this would be a great case for them
Right.
to finally show that New York courts have to start complying with the Second Amendment.
Guys, I hate to interrupt. We have some breaking news that just came through. I don't think any of you are prepared for this. I certainly wasn't. Apparently, Andrew Cuomo is anti-gun.
Oh, boy.
I just did not know that.
Oh, boy.
I don't know if you guys had heard that before.
Certainly has enough armed guards, though.
Right, they all do, right? Tyler, you're dying over there. You have so many questions.
Let's get
Our
to
fans out there,
Uh-oh.
they are asking some amazing questions. I just
Yeah,
had
you guys
to.
are very
We've got so
popular,
much.
so-
Yeah. People want me to read the weather too. This weekend it is going to be gorgeous. All right, it's going to be climate change. You don't want to soak up more rads than you need to. Okay,
Correct.
so yeah. All right.
Be careful.
I am tired running back and forth between all of these monitors, I'll tell you. Comment section is exploding, as always. Some questions I have. I guess some of these are just more like general gun questions.
Sure.
I'm assuming politicians, they mean are how come there are so many anti-gun laws?
Judges, all the justices on the U.S. So that is, all the justices of them believe in the power of the Constitution is outmoded, that it's irrelevant administrative state. So that, I guess that's the first answer. And this at the state level, from states like New York and other communist locales, Jersey, and then they tend to one thing about the Second Amendment in a particular type of gun law, and then another one says a different thing. Hence the not mooting it and letting us know really which circuit court is correct. So I guess that's the answer.
Are progressives in the sense that
Correct.
the law schools, the law schools are trending left progressive. It's taken a while for the Trump appointees to start redressing the balance
Right.
in the lower courts. So, but the Supreme Court has only taken,
Right.
and they've resolved. New York state courts have never applied Heller to strike down a law.
Right.
So the time is right now for the Supreme Court to take a case out of New York, and I think we have a really good.
Tyler, next question.
Changing segues. With a more increased number of people owning firearms, gun laws or
Sure.
Generally.
I personally don't. Citizens are in sync with the core purpose of the Second Amendment, which is how many of those people have an AR pattern legitimately resist government tyranny. I think that these people are, or the perspective of like, let's look at all of the and where that goes over the long term. And I'm not deploying the National Guard to quell protest. Do that in a similar fashion against me. Certainly set the precedent to make that happen. So getting back to the question, I kind of struggle. I think they're just starting out in their firearms ownership journey. I hope they continue with it because I view, and this has been my experience, my journey with the Second Amendment has been a gateway to self-reliance and a range of other facets of life. And a realization that total reliance on the government is a recipe. People get there, but in the near term, we have to realize it takes a lot of effort, work, and dedication to be someone who's more self-reliant and takes the view that government is not take that because I don't want the government cheese. I don't want a welfare payment. Are there a lot of people who are standing up and saying that? That's sort of the mindset that I would view that would align with the Second Amendment. So I think in the short term, no, it's not going to change a lot of the gun laws that we have and the ones that are coming down the pipe. But
I want to hold on 1 second.
Sorry.
I just want to add on to what you said there for 1 second.
Sure.
I want to say that a lot of that tie is going to have to do with us as a community,
Right.
And the way that we kind of welcome these people into the fold, and the way that we kind of educate them and bring them up in this journey. Self-reliance as like a bigger picture gun owners. We can bring them in, bring them up, make them feel welcome, make them feel like we.
Go ahead.
Coffee question. Yeah, we're gonna have to go ahead.
Sorry.
It was a very good question. Get in the box.
So we're definitely gonna go murder out on that.
Yes, murder that shit out.
sounds good to me.
Um,
I don't even know what the question is.
capacity limits. I get that question a lot.
Board of Appeals that covers California that says that the 10-round magazine is unconstitutional. New York State, just to be clear with everybody, is not covered by the Ninth Circuit Court. That will only apply to the states that fall under the Ninth Circuit, outlined by Judge Roger Benitez, who penned that decision that says that the 10-round limit is unconstitutional. That could be cited in court briefs, and I think it actually is.
It's cited in the strict scrutiny,
Right.
contrary to the Second Circuit.
But just to be clear, that is not a binding decision on the Second Circuit. So it can be cited and articulated, and potentially could be persuaded out that decision that will compel New York City.
The decision that's already been made.
They may look at that as persuasive. I would look at a less restrictive means of achieving the state's interest in public safety, right? So you even if you had a registration program where you had someone go through some type of licensing test to be, however, that's
It'd still be less restrictive.
that's a less officer could possibly handle. Obviously stupid. So that would be a less restriction scheme, but that the blanket ban does not, pass constitutional muster. So it can be cited. We actually have cited it. Now it's a situation where we have to convince the full Second Circuit Court of Appeals to agree and/or appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, hopefully with a freshly appointed judge, Trump appointee, and be able to convince them of this.
Awesome. This isn't a fairly heard people say that all gun.
I think that's mostly accurate. One was to halt in the South, and then the other later on was to either halt the newly arrived immigrants in New York City, such as Italian Americans in New York City, from owning weapons as well, and then encouraging the passage of a Sullivan Act type pistol permit licensure program in California that was also backed by the NRA, because the Black Panthers were open carrying, maybe murdering, frankly, citizens in the streets. So all the motivating factors for all those laws, which we still have books today, start with those earlier than that. So yeah, from its roots, they have racist roots. That's true.
In the book, the Second Amendment Works supported our effort, because look at New York City, which is a heavy minority population. You almost have to be a judge to get a permit there. So there's several million members of minority groups who essentially have been disarmed, and that's why over the years it ebbs and flows, but that's why there's been so many.
Right. Yeah, I would say even the NICS system, the background check system, many people may not realize that system is based on the finesse and purchase a firearm. Attacked us from locations like Chicago and other cities, is they're denied on the NICS check just because their name sounds like some system operates. I guess you could say would be inherently racist as well, just because it doesn't take into account. So I would agree with the statement. Yeah, all gun control at its basic level is racially motivated.
Well, and generally, when you put some sort of a barrier in place, right, it's generally going to be some sort of a financial barrier as well, right? So people that have more money have more disposable income as well, and so they have more money for discretionary spending, like permit.
Permit challenge that it could take $5,000. Many people have $5,000 to spend.
Absolutely. Exactly. Tyler, any other questions?
I'll hydrate in a second. Lists. One person asked, how do I know who the 2A lawyer is? Saratoga.
Have attorneys who will take gun cases and have won those Second Amendment cases. That's more difficult. That's really how I got linked up with Jim. Is when I started my journey on this whole thing, it was coming from the perspective of I was a shooter. I feel like I could do a better job, law degree, therefore I can't take the bar exam, and is dedicated to it. And enter Jim Ostrowski. All Jim has ever practiced really in his law career. He has won a range of gun cases. It was a post-conviction case. So anyone who knows accomplished that, and not only accomplished that, but
and Letitia James
started with Schneiderman.
It started out with Schneiderman.
He had to step upon in the progressive community. So in any event, it went from Schneiderman to James.
Yep.
You clean their clock in the court.
By the way, both from a case.
Right.
And Letitia James is not only her office is up against us in the pistol permit case. She's a defense.
You won the SAFE Act case. That was a gun confiscation case that occurred a month or two before red flag even happened. It was just on the strength of. So what I'm getting at here is there are plenty of gun attorneys out there. There are people who want to represent you, in pistol permit cases, or if you get rolled up on a gun charge. A lot of these guys are background, representing a lot of people who really are criminals and are legitimately guilty, and that gun-related charge and is trying to find. And they are focused on simply pleading statute, the unconstitutional statute that you're fighting. Client, we will focus on obviously getting the best result for the individual, but we also want to attack that statute you find yourself in. So I guess
because I'm not going to do this forever.
Right.
We hope to bring a good, affordable representation when they need it.
Yeah, and I'll mention, we're working with two attorneys right now. Well, one that's in Rochester, that we met with over the summer who's interested to bring up the next generation of Second Amendment attorneys. So we're not talking about like hourly billings that go into the hundreds of thousands. It's usually a flat ground level up to wherever we have to appeal it to. So,
Just to for some have some fun.
yeah, pretty much all these cases that we talked about, the wins that Jim has had, are done on a budget of like 10 grand at the most. To get those things done. Like the Safe Act case, I think was $700-800 beyond what most other groups are able to do. Is a big fee.
I've got so many questions on so many different streaming services.
Eat the elephant one
You
bite at a
you
time.
guys are making that one. Brandon, this one's for you. Stick your face in my camera real quick.
Hey.
Hi. Do you need a permit to carry that?
Just like any other, it's got a serial number. It would have to go on your pistol permit. Yep.
So I kind of want to change topics to, this is a good set. We're defending their home on,
The McCloskey's?
yes,
In
that's,
St. Louis.
Okay.
they kind of, what are your thoughts on the NRA and all of that?
Are we still on this camera right now?
Of course we are. Let me take off
Awesome.
my VIP.
Okay, so my view on that is a couple things. I think that the NRA spent a tremendous amount of money on the NYSERPA case, which ended up in a loss, unfortunately. They generally, from my inside view of how they do billings, they just kind of let their attorneys run with this. If the billings for that case were well over $1 million, we already know that the NRA is operating at a deficit because of all the various scandals and other issues they've had ongoing. Violations, I think imagined violations of the charity law in New York State. One of the reasons we're not organized as a nonprofit, because I knew New York State would eventually weaponize nonprofit law against gun groups and other groups that they want to quell the free speech of. But I think a lot of it has to do with funding drying up, less membership dollars, step away from litigation at this point and try and just sort of reorient themselves. I think they're more in survival mode right now, not so much in like force projection mode. Let's get involved in legal fights. I just don't think that they have the will and the revenue to do that right now.
Organizations, I've always aggressive. I think it was maybe quoting The Godfather. If it's bad news, I want to hear it now.
Right.
Because then we'll adopt a counter strategy. Because failure is not an option. Like Edison would say, you know, that experiment didn't work. We need to try another experiment. Mm-hmm. Failure is not an option. We know what happens when you lose the right to bear arms. It's the data's in the book. R.J. Rummel collected all the statistics on death by government,
right,
which is also mentioned in the book. So I support the most hardcore, most aggressive groups, and that's why at the moment I've gotten some. What we're doing. I think he's aggressive, and he's fearless.
All of the NRA is very different with the current court setup pre-Ginsburg civil right, like the Second Amendment civil right to keep and bear arms. And I think the NRA looked at that and said, okay, well, we lost, game over. Mm-hmm. Whereas our organization, like we don't, from the perspective of like New York State government, I don't view the legislature as a legitimate lawmaking body in the first place. So to me, it's like, it doesn't matter what edict is passed. To your point, Jim, the litigation piece of the strategy is just that, one piece of the strategy. That's the repeal strategy. The other part is non-compliance, and the other part is non-enforcement. So there's a range of other things that are going on that are all part of one cohesive program to fight the state. So I think that's something to take into account too. For us, this is just one piece of the strategy. For the NRA, whose whole business model deals with influencing the legislature and the courts and you paying them to do that, that's the be-all end-all for them. So that's probably another answer as well. Tyler, anything else?
I feel like, because I was actually having a conversation with Brandon earlier today about this. They asked more about the media. I want to take us towards like social media kind of, because I feel like that's where most people are getting their media. What are your thoughts on media literacy across America?
And actually, you wrote a book on a topic that dovetails into this, and I want to segue into that.
Yep.
Jim, there's 3 books that we could talk about, which Jim already talked about. Progressivism, a primer, progressivism in government schools, are an explanation as to why we have poor media literacy. It's because the progressive ideology and government schools in tandem don't train people to be critical thinkers, and generally don't train people to be entrepreneurs and sort of captains of their own ships in life. So the whole issue that we have with Facebook and fake news and everything, that's sort of couched as a problem with social media. I don't think that's the case at all. I think social media holds up a mirror to the flaws that society already has. Facebook or other social media platforms is not going to change the fact that we have a largely like lazy and dumbed down population. Hitting the structural problems we have here, which is progressivism. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Just said that basically progressives make bad journalists. When you have this ideology that the government is going to solve all human problems, that makes you a bad reporter, because in any story you're always looking for the progressive angle. You know, like the terrorist attack, was it in San Bernardino? If there's one thing that's not going to stop terrorist attack. So when you're a progressive and you believe in this progressive big government ideology, it prevents you from clearly reporting on a story. And the cable TV, Capital Tonight, I think is her show. She
used to host that show. She's since left.
Well, at that time.
Yep.
And she interviewed us over one of the gun cases. I think it was the early stages of the pistol permit case. And the opposite of the progressive view is just not familiar to these people. They've lived in an echo chamber, and as like I say on Facebook, certainly as a libertarian for 41 years, I've usually been in the minority, and I have to look at the other views and try to respond to that.
And a desire to think critically, that's really not taught in the government school system, which educates most children in the United States. So until that changes, I don't think you're going to see media literacy improve. I mean, all the quote-unquote fake news that you see on Facebook, if you're a critical thinker, it's pretty automatic for you to look at and question a lot of what you see in your feed and ask, is that just, emotionally motivated? Is this purely politically motivated? As you're reading through the story, do these facts check out? I mean, it's pretty easy to see red flags and alarm bells, rise up, even if it's from a news source that maybe you favor, like the Daily Wire or something. You can take that stuff with a grain of salt and take a minute or so and Google around to other sources and figure out if what's being reported is truly accurate or just there to present a politically or ideologically motivated viewpoint. So anyway, in short, I mean, the books that Jim has out, I think offer a lot of great solutions to the problem we have with media illiteracy and the lack of critical thinking in general. And Tyler's got the links to those too if you want to pick them up on Amazon.
One of the other things, I'm not sure if you mentioned it because I was kind of distracted doing something else, but one of the other things that you could potentially do, right, if you find something online or in the news that kind of confirms your priors, so to speak, right, you always want to look for countervailing evidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Point you in the opposite direction, right? Because something confirms the way that I think about something, I generally want to find out whether or not it's bullshit right off the bat, right? Because it's going to sound true to me because it's something that I want to believe already.
Right.
So that confirmation bias is pretty powerful.
Absolutely. And even from just like a rhetorical standpoint, if you're going to debate somebody on the other side, it's still good to, on every issue, take a look at the Huffington Post. How are they reporting on this issue? Like, for instance, what's been happening in Louisiana over the past 24 hours. If you look at the New York Times, the lead story, and it probably is still true right now, it was at least last night up until 9 a.m. this morning, which was the last time I looked at their homepage. The lead story was the fact that no officer was charged in the murder of Breonna Taylor. And that continued to be the lead story even after 2 officers were confirmed to be shot in Louisiana. Now, the New York Post, their lead was 2 officers shot in Louisiana. Huffington Post, not that. The fact that the 3 officers were not charged in the death of Breonna Taylor. So it's good to look at all those things too and take a look at the rhetoric of what the other side is saying. So if you want to argue against that, you can. Or they may have some salient points that, as Pat mentioned, debunk the narrative that maybe you had previous to that. Any other questions?
Yeah, I don't know. My take on that is I just feel like people are losing sources. Sources no longer matter to anybody. People will share stuff and it'll be from a website who I've never heard of that looks like it was thrown up overnight and an article was just shared and people
something dot.
Yeah, something.
Right.
Yeah, and it's just people are just getting information from the internet and just peeking
not
out
questioning it
and sharing it. And
the other big issue that I generally see, because I've had problems with this myself, posting stories from our site where people will read a portion of a headline and not complete even the headline.
Yes.
They form an opinion off that, and then you're into a comment thread that's like 20 comments deep based off of a story that actually means something completely different than what they thought it meant.
And then
So-
you're going back and forth in the comments,
Yes.
and you're like, "Did you even actually read
Did
the
you
story?"
read the story?
Because
So that goes to, I think that the larger issue that we have as a society too is like we're addicted to comfort. Comfort is a drug that people are addicted to, and it takes effort and energy to actually like dig through stuff like that, or even spend the 1 minute to read the full headline, click on the link, go through the story. That takes too much time for them, and so they're just going to snap to a judgment based off of the first 5 words of the headline,
100%.
comment on that, and go from there. And that's going to have to change too. People will generally say to you that takes too much time. My response to that would be read faster, or like you're going to have to like catch up. Especially the Second Amendment community. I think we're guilty of that a lot. We look at what's in a photo and what part of the headline says, and we snap to a judgment. And we got to understand, like, as a movement, we're up against a lot of, even though we may disagree with their ideology on the progressive left, there's a lot of smart people who are on that side of the fight. So we have to be better than they are. We have to be smarter than they are. We have to be more disciplined than they are. So that's going to mean we're going to have to go the extra mile and constantly be striving to improve and break that addiction to comfort. Because that's the only way we're going to outlast them in this fight and eventually win.
And don't live in an echo chamber.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many times they'll say, this is what happened on Morning Joe this morning. And people say, you watch Morning Joe? You're damn right I watch Morning Joe.
I have to know
I
what
watch
they're saying.
everything.
Yeah.
How are you going to know how to debate the
Right.
opponent if you don't study the opponent's argument? When I'm a trial lawyer, I have to anticipate what the DA is going to say on her or his summation because they go last. You have to study the opponent. You have to be able to, in college debate, which I wasn't in, but my father was, and I'm familiar with it, you have to do both sides, one after another. You have to learn the other person's case. So don't live in an echo chamber. It makes you dumb.
Right. And if at the very least, even if you disagree with the other side, it's intelligence gathering to see what they're up to. I encounter a lot of gun owners out there who are sort of resistant to training, and they think that if there's some type of civil conflict that breaks out, like the left is just going to be destroyed because the right has all the guns. If you are on Facebook and you don't have an account where you are on left-wing gun groups, you should, because those guys are out there training now, and some of them are involved in some pretty legit training. So the idea that if there's a civil conflict that breaks out, the left is just going to bow down and it's not even going to be a contest, I don't think that's necessarily totally true. So it's also a validation for how important at this juncture in history your training is going to be, not just your ownership of a firearm, because you are ultimately the weapon. So are you out there training? Because I have to say, people on the other side of the ideological spectrum who maybe were averse to gun ownership and firearms training before definitely aren't anymore. And if you're taking a look and running counterintelligence on those people, you're going to see that.
Well, the Russian army was pretty good, and they were communists.
Sure.
So you can't judge people's skill necessarily by their ideology.
Right.
I have to admit, I am addicted to comfort by way of Hickey Freeman, Brooks Brothers. It's very hard. I obviously live a very rough life, so it's nice to be able to have the nice things for once. I just wanted to say that. Sorry.
Comfort living. So there's a question that I can answer if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, go for it. Absolutely.
It's a quick question. Someone asked about delays, why they're taking so long, and like the new law on that. So I've been in the industry since 2014, and back when I first started, up until it was this year, I'm pretty sure. Federally, if you so let me backtrack. Whenever you run a background check in my store, and we do the paperwork, and then I go in the back and I run it on the computer, the government tells me 3 things: yes, maybe, no. Yes, obviously, is a proceed. You can take the firearm that day. A maybe, meaning a delay, means the government has to check something, and that can happen because one of the databases that auto checks you is down, and they need to do some further reviewing. Or you've done something a little bit questionable in your past, and they need to further dig into your history.
Maybe
and
a
make
very
sure.
common name.
Yes, that too, or a common name. John Smith, you're going to get delayed, I promise you. Unless you put your social security number, that might help you. And finally, the deny. Obviously, with the deny, I can't give you the gun. Don't ask me why. I don't know. They don't tell me. I kind of wish they did. It would be interesting to see why you got denied or delayed. So those are your three options. Before this year, anytime we got a delay, there was a rule with 3 business days. If I didn't get a response from the government didn't tell me yes or no, you can come in and pick that firearm up. However, New York State just passed a law that said now there is a 30-day wait on that. So now I have to wait 30 days for the government to tell me yes or no. One of the problems with that is the background check form expires on the 30th day. So if you're not back in my store by the time you filled out and signed your name and I ran it, if you're not back in that time, then you have to go through the process all over again. Typically though, I will be honest with you, most of the time we get delays in 3 days. I mean, the government wants to make sure that they're proceeding or denying people. They don't want that to be caught in limbo or a whole bunch of people that questionable, like mental institutions or people that the government doesn't deem fit to own firearms. They won't be able to. They'll be able to possess them. So they try to get that done fairly quickly. Which kind of leads me to another question. It's a nice segue. Why or when did felons lose their ability to practice their Second Amendment rights?
Well, you may have some comments on whether or not this pre-exists the decision I'm about to mention, Jim, but that was really set out very clearly in the 2008 District of Columbia versus Heller decision, which did several things. One was, for the first time in a Supreme Court decision, articulated the civil right to keep and bear arms disconnected from service in a militia, that's one, and then also articulated the classes of people who could constitutionally be precluded from owning arms, which would be those who were involuntarily committed for mental health reasons, so the mentally ill, and then also felons. And that's really all that Heller frankly said. That's why, going back to the beginning of this conversation tonight that we started having about the various types of tests that are applied in court cases, the Supreme Court didn't really say anything in Heller or the subsequent McDonald decision that came a couple years later about the type of test that should be applied to determine if statutes actually offend the Second Amendment and are therefore unconstitutional. So, to my knowledge, the DC versus Heller case is sort of the emanator of that situation where if you're a felon, any type of felon, that's grounds for denial, but you may have a different opinion.
Well, I can't speak with great authority on it, but we just looked very quickly at Judge Barrett's dissent, which was in 2018. You can Google it.
Right. And this is Amy Coney Barrett from the
She
Seventh
goes through
Circuit.
the whole history of depriving felons of the right to bear arms. All the details are there. We just skimmed it. It goes back to colonial days. The precedent is kind of sketchy. But now in federal law, and I wish I could tell you when that was in there, that's clearly in there. Mm-hmm. And her position was that unless it's a violent offense, it should not forfeit your right. And
right.
I think she's correct on that.
And that's an interesting thing to talk about because a couple things just to articulate on that go back to the beginning of this conversation. With respect to who Trump is considering to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg, at the top of the list right now is Amy Coney Barrett. She's a Seventh Circuit federal court judge. And we really only have one court case that deals with the Second Amendment that she opined on to sort of get a window into her feelings on the Second Amendment. She dissented from the larger panel of justices that ruled on this court case involving a guy who was convicted of wire fraud, or mail fraud, which is a nonviolent felony. She broke with the court and also took the Heller decision a step further and said that some felons should be able to own firearms, and it's those felons who are nonviolent. So obviously mail fraud being a nonviolent felony, she's saying that type of person should still have their Second Amendment rights in full force, whereas someone who obviously convicted of like felony murder or assault or something of that nature, rape, something like that, that person obviously it'd be constitutional to deny them their Second Amendment rights. So that's kind of a window into how she views things, and her reading the decision and her dissent specifically, her rationale for that goes back to what the founders said about the Second Amendment when they wrote it, and what founding era legislatures, how they dealt with people who were convicted of certain crimes, either letting them keep gun ownership rights or take them away. and by and large, people who were nonviolent felons or people who were convicted of crimes that were nonviolent were able to keep those rights. So she is very much more an originalist and a text and tradition type person, which, going back to our earlier conversation, goes beyond the strict scrutiny standard. So that really gives me a lot of hope. If she got, let's say, our case coming up from the Second Circuit, she would look at the pistol permit regime and say, obviously the founders would not be okay with this, and therefore she would reverse it.
She also clerked for both Judge Thomas and Judge Scalia, who were both in the Heller majority. So
Right.
That's another good sign.
Yeah.
Oh, you're waiting on me. Sorry.
Yes, we're waiting for you, sir.
What'd you do today? How was your day?
It was pretty good. Generally, my project over the past 2 days has been ripping the garage apart. I've sort of been tearing that down, and it's going to become like a training area. It's going to be a garage gym going forward. I wrapped that up today and moved like the squat rack from the basement up there and everything else, and I finished that up right before I went to pick Jim up and drive out here. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow getting up and using that garage gym. So it was a good day.
I should say, as an update on the lockdown case, which Brandon is our lead plaintiff, and the firing pin as well. We were everything was pending in front of the court, but I read an article about Donald Luskin, who's a Wall Street guru. His firm did a study on cell phone use and the lockdown and spread of COVID. And long story short, his study concluded that the lockdown had no effect. In fact, if anything, it was actually the opposite, that where there were more people moving around in certain states, they had better health outcome. Mm-hmm. He graciously agreed to give us an affidavit. So his study is going to be in the record in Lewis v. Cuomo, and anything else I can scrounge up for Wednesday. So I'm going to be working over the weekend to gather up all the research in our a lot of this data. What I've done is I've looked at density of population, the lockdown, and the death rate. And you'll find, for example, that New York has the second highest death rate to New Jersey, which is the most densely populated state, obviously.
Sure.
However, New York is only the seventh most densely populated state. So New York has actually done worse. And basically, using data like that, very common sense data, you don't have to have a PhD to understand it. There's no evidence at all that the lockdown has improved our health. In fact, in Sweden, where there was no major lockdown, they're basically over with. And lots of the states here, which had a strict lockdown, are now going through a second phase. The lockdown didn't work.
Right. And just we should I think go into that a little bit further. So we've got two cases that we're talking about tonight. We really haven't gotten too deeply into the Lewis v. Cuomo case. So we primarily focused on Libertarian Party of Erie County versus Cuomo, which is totally focused on reversing the pistol permit regime. And that's in the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, one step below the Supreme Court. The Lewis v. Cuomo case, which involves the firing pin, I'm a plaintiff on that case along with a range of other folks. That does address the Second Amendment, primarily New York State's cancellation of the Second Amendment during the pandemic lockdown, but really primarily focuses on the lockdown itself and the constitutionality of that lockdown. The central argument we have in Lewis v. Cuomo is the fact that what the state has done here, meaning the legislature transferring all lawmaking power to one person, the governor, is not permitted by the state constitution. And the whole scheme through which the state has done this is illegal. And the state has just sort of shrugged its shoulders and said, oh, well, we're in unprecedented times, so we're allowed to do this. Our argument is, no, you're not. If you want to do this, you have to make an amendment to the state constitution. And more broadly, we're also saying that it's not the state's place to compel people to do things like wear masks and basically lock down and close businesses. It's the government's job to make a credible argument and to build up trust with the people before a crisis hits, and then spend that capital, that confidence capital, with a discerning, engaged public. And if the public rejects those arguments, it simply means the government didn't do its job. So it's a lot about, it has a lot to do with government compulsion and what the state constitution says, and the Cuomo regime's proclivity to make end runs around the constitutional requirements that the state has, like you talked about in the pork lawsuit in 2008. So where that lawsuit stands is we're in the Western District Federal Circuit, right, or not Federal Circuit.
Western District of New York, Rochester,
Yes.
it's Judge Siragusa, waiting for a decision, but he's allowing us to supplement our hard evidence on the effects of the lockdown, which I think all the new evidence is that it failed.
Right. So we're in the federal court system. We're in a federal district court for the Western District, which covers 17 county area of Western New York. We can go up to the Second Circuit. We probably will. And then beyond that, it's the U.S. Supreme Court. So just to give people an update on where that stands. And sprinkled in there are arguments about cancellation of the Second Amendment because we have all this unconstitutional red tape that requires you to visit a government office to exercise the right to own a pistol or buy a rifle because, as many of you know who've tried to visit the firing pin around the March timeframe, they were shut down too. Because that all depends on government offices being open to own a pistol and the state allowing gun shops to be open in the first place, it just demonstrates that unconstitutional red tape canceled the Second Amendment, which is unconstitutional as well. So we hit a ton of issues in that lawsuit that also touch the Second Amendment.
First Amendment, religious liberty is also challenged, and the right to have a business operate.
Right.
So it's the broadest based challenge to the lockdown that we know of throughout the country.
Right.
Impressive stuff, guys. All right, do we have any more questions from the viewership or?
Well, sorry, I don't know. Man, what were we supposed to talk about?
We got some cool stuff in, some cool products.
Yeah, what we got?
We got more stuff, I promise you. But I've been like, I kind of forgot about these. You know, we're just playing around over here. Josh gave me a list of things to talk about. Actually, Josh, come stick your face in my camera.
So we have a really funny story real quick. So we may have locked ourselves in to like the main retail area.
Like front doors locked.
Literally, yeah. So like one of those things, I put my key. I never do this. I always try to keep my keys on me, and I put them on the table in the back, not thinking. And the way our shop door is, like the one with all the stickers on it, it's really easy to like when you shut that to accidentally hit the little dingus to lock it. So like we've been all been in here for like the past hour, and yeah, we've been like locked in here. Everything's deadbolted. All the window cages are shut. Like we were saying, like if there was a fire, we literally all would
We're
die.
dead. We're so dead.
Like so thank you, Josh. Josh drove all the way home just to unlock us. Thank you, buddy.
I was gonna say he's been here for a long time.
I think they can smell you out there.
In my car.
So some things we gotta talk about, Josh. I mean, you're here. Let's talk about this. First things first. I mean,
Vortex Optics, as many of you know, we are a Vortex Optics dealer. Just got a fresh batch of some Crossfire 2s in the flavors of 2 to 7 by 32. Great for shotguns. Okay, we got some 3 to 9s by 40s, both in the V-Plex reticle and one of their other very, very popular reticles. Which one's this? The Deadhold BDC, super popular reticle. And we also got in one of the higher end ones from them, which is the Crossfire, or sorry, not higher end as far as Vortex goes, higher end as far as the magnification goes in that line. The 6 to 18 by 44 Crossfire, and those all.
That one's first focal, right, Josh?
Not the Crossfire, but the one that Brian just bought, which was the
Diamondback.
back. Yeah, very, very, and that was less than 300. I think it was like 279 or like 379
That's
or
a pretty
so
good deal.
for that scope. So to find a scope less than $500 with first focal plane from a reputable, you know, like optics spot is pretty cool. But that one's gone. We do have more of those on the way. All we got now are Crossfire 2s, like I said, in a bunch of different flavors. I've got 5 Mossberg.
Whoa.
Hey.
that's like a big one. Let's say that.
Okay.
Let's say that for a minute.
All right.
You're so like.
I'm just so excited. I just can't have it.
855. We got some of that, right?
We still have some 5.56 NATO in XM855 Type 1 each.
Very similar to what somebody's going to win. That's still up for grabs. I mean, there's a lot of you being very active, but
30 rounds on stripper clips.
I don't know if I like you yet. No, I'm kidding. I love all of you. Glocks.
Got 2 Gen 3 19s coming.
That's
Am I looking at this camera?
Yeah, this camera. Where the people are here.
We've got 2 Gen 3 19s coming. We have a P365 XL coming. We have some Mossberg MC1s coming. And a few other.
Literally 40 tabs on Google Chrome.
This
Just
guy's
full of
picking
crap.
on me for my tabs, okay? That's how I get
40.
Crashed a
40
couple
tabs.
machines.
100%.
That's how I get shit done, okay? I have a billion tabs open. He's scared I'm gonna fry the computer.
I think
I've
you
been
still
doing this my whole life. I've been doing this.
I think you still have 2 F-bombs to go as well.
Yeah, we haven't hit PG.
I can get that through in one sentence. Even on my phone, I have probably 30, 40 tabs open.
I don't want to know what those tabs are. I think we should. Nah, I think we're gonna make them all wait. Sorry, guys. Nah, I'm kidding. Why don't we explain what we've got coming in?
Okay.
The people deserve this.
All right. Well, probably nobody's looking for these, but we have 5 Mossberg 590 shockwaves coming.
5 of them. You guys are actually the first to hear about this, so this is why watching these live streams is so fantastic.
Quick, somebody get me a trash can.
Pat, you love 590 shockwaves. A tiny 12 gauge.
Oh, I just got stuff coming up.
It's the best.
I just counted, it was 28 tabs open in the back.
20.
That's a light day.
He closed
It's a
the
light day.
These everybody's looking for these 590s. That is like one of the apocalypse guns of choice, other than the PC carbine. Dare I even say that word? If you're opening that, I want some.
The only way for me to get inventory is to literally hound our sales reps every day. Call them, be like, what you got allocated? Give it to me.
Or like $2,000 worth of crap we don't want to buy.
Or a lot of times they say, oh, we'll let you buy this very, very popular item if you buy this very non-popular item.
We've been trying to move for 5 years.
Yeah. So we
seriously.
end up having to make sacrifices for you guys. I just want you to know.
We have a Remington R51. You guys can have that.
You can't have
Literally, I have to go through and I have to back order anything that I think might sell here, which is everything. So I
Remington
just have to
783
go
and
through
270.
and place it on back order, and then they just call me when it comes in. That's how it is going to be moving forward here for the foreseeable future. So it's not like it was, 6-8 months ago, and if you wanted something, yeah, sure, I can get it here in a week. It'll be here in a week.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be calling, or I never thought that I would be answering phone calls for people saying that we don't have 9mm. In fact, 8 months ago, people would call and say, hey, do you have 9mm? I'd be like, yeah, of course I do. We're a shooting range and a gun shop. I have 9mm.
Always.
Duh.
I love you, but
Duh.
I'm so sick of answering.
Is there air in your store?
Yeah.
What's the R rating in here?
Right.
Yeah, I love you guys, but the phone calls asking for 9 and 556, it's so draining. It's
All we can say is you have to keep an eye on the live streams, because like we just did, we will tell you when we have stuff coming in, and keep an eye on our Facebook page when we get stuff in.
Or
we'll
Discord.
throw it up.
Discord's always
On the
another great
Facebook.
one.
We'll throw it up on the Facebook page.
Nice.
Any other TFP news to get in quickly?
I don't think so. Anybody have any specific questions for me?
How
Probably.
are you so beautiful?
I have
How many
one.
different beers have you tried?
Do you have 9 mil?
Tonight? On the way here?
On the way, yeah.
On the way here.
Just kidding, Mom, if you're watching.
What's your favorite animal? I want King Phillips and all of that.
Across all genuses.
Across all
Cross all
genuses.
pieces and species, man. Oh boy. And kingdoms? I
I want you to start with Kingdom.
don't know.
As you would.
My favorite animal? I don't know. I've got a soft spot for bald eagles
What is the scientific name of bald eagle?
and the American bison. The scientific name for American bison is literally bison bison. The genus is bison. The species is bison. Bison.
Give me a cool bison fact.
You just did.
They were almost eradicated by the Lewis and Clark expedition.
Oh, specifically? Like,
No relation.
No relation.
spelled the same, right?
Meriwether Lewis, yeah, I believe so. The Lewis part.
Yeah. No, maybe better.
That's it. Maybe I'll come back on one of these
You should.
times.
Probably not. Producer, can we come back to camera?
Probably
two?
lost so
Can we
many
just,
people.
yeah, we're just dropping off.
People can't see my Crocs though.
Suck those puppies
Pretty
up.
sweet.
I am wearing them.
See, I was gonna let it slide. I wasn't even gonna say anything. You put yourself out
Look
there.
at that
for
athleticism.
Crocs.
See, you're ready for the types of, you're ready for the
I'm
types of
so
games.
ready.
Crocs.
I'm in the elite.
Elite.
Extra elite.
A division unto itself.
Eat your heart out, Derek.
He's the only one that gets to compete in
That's right.
Crocs. No play carry.
Elite requires Crocs only.
Crocs, no play
The dad
carry.
division.
That's how we go.
Yes. If there was a dad division, I would own it.
Got to push your lawnmower the entire way.
Mounted AR.
My New Balances.
Nice.
I've got
Sorry,
a lot of positive reception to tonight's
Good.
live stream. Everybody's saying you guys did a great job. Lots of information.
Good.
I always appreciate you guys for that, and I'm not really necessarily closing down unless we're ready for that. But I just wanted to let it be known that a lot of people are loving this episode.
Do you have more questions?
I haven't checked in a minute. I've been on camera, so I'm actually. I'm gonna look. You
Sure. Should I go here? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So there was one thing that was posted a couple times in our Discord, and a couple things I saw on Facebook. There is the sheriff's race in Genesee County is heating up, I guess, and there's a lot of contention, there's a lot of debate, and a lot of interest, I guess, in this Genesee County sheriff's race. So we kind of just want to throw it out there. We would love to have maybe a Second Amendment forum here with the two candidates, and we're getting down to the wire here. But both of these candidates are purporting to be very pro 2A. So we would like to put it out there that we're interested in hosting. If they would like to come down, and maybe we could do like a virtual, get some people to sign up and have some good questions for them to answer from the gun community. And maybe we could publicize it like this, do a live stream, and get your comments live. So if that's something you're interested in, let us know. If you know Sheriff Sharon, or I don't want to butcher his name, is it Crazemian, the other gentleman running? I've seen the signs everywhere, I'm sorry, I don't want to butcher your name. But yeah, if you know them, have them reach out, or if you're watching, I'm sure they are, reach out, let us know. We'd love to have you here. So yeah, that's all I had.
Something about greasy taco. These comments, man. I sleep well at night reading these comments.
Oh man. Someone said they liked my tie. That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted.
Did anybody ask about CMP shoots?
I haven't seen any about CMP sheets. Do you want to make a plug for CMP sheets or something?
No, I was just.
Oh
I
no.
thought
No,
I saw-
I just ace everyone. It's okay. No, it's
I
just,
thought I seen a comment for CMP related
if you
competition.
saw one, spit it out. Thank you for enjoying my choice of black rifle across my chest. This is the SIG MCX. It's not in configuration because it stays here for work purposes and training. But if it were to ever leave with me and go to my house, obviously I would make sure it's legal. But yeah, this is like one of my favorite rifles that I personally own. One thing Jeremiah keeps talking about, I know we're kind of close on time, is Remington, or Palmetto State buying Remington, or at least looking into that. That's news to me. I haven't heard that. That's why I haven't really asked, because I haven't done my research on it.
Be interesting.
That is a great question, maybe for next live stream. I think that would be a nice little topic to bring up, because I don't want to just talk about something I don't know anything about. What is next Thursday's dress code?
That can be whatever you want, buddy. It can be whatever. I've got Hickey Freeman and Brooks Brothers for days, so you tell me.
First day.
You tell me.
What do you want? What do you want dress?
In my head, I have Jim's profession, but I work here, so.
Can we do like a 90s? A 90s night?
None of that stuff fits me anymore, but sure.
I got a Space Jam windbreaker.
I'll wear a
Space
I'll wear
Jam.
a
You were.
I think that's it, guys. I think that's it. I think people are just watching me make a fool of myself, trying to read comments and scramble.
Classic.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that's it. I'm gonna switch back to you guys
Sure.
because
Sounds
we
good.
love you, and I really do appreciate you guys for coming out. Is there any last minute things you guys want to say?
Yeah, I would say for folks who asked a question and maybe it didn't get answered fully, we've got a Facebook page. It's at 2ANYS, numeral 2 alpha, A like alpha, NYS like New York State. You can ask a question there. Our website is 2ANYS, numeral 2 A like alpha, NYS like New York State.com. We have a form submission where you can ask questions. And also, people generally always ask when we talk about court cases or anything we're doing, how can we support you? We have memberships that we do, $60 for the year or $8 a month, which supports the court cases that we fight and other operational requirements that we have. A lot of research goes into what we do, so payment for time and other outside staff that deal with those things. You can join us at 2anys.com/join, Join. And if you want to donate to support our court cases, it's 2anys.com/help-us-fight. You can also get to that from the main menu, so you can make donations to us there as well.
I'm dropping a link now.
Awesome. We appreciate everyone's time. We appreciate the support. Going to be doing a range of additional Second Amendment advocacy work throughout 2020 into 2021. Obviously, keep an eye on the Supreme Court. We understand that President Trump is expected to make an announcement about his decided upon nominee to the court on Saturday. So we'll see if it ends up being Amy Coney Barrett or somebody else. And perhaps we'll do another live stream like this or some update on one of our respective channels, mine or Jim's, about, what do we think now? What are some potential next steps? And obviously, we'll keep people updated about our court cases that we have ongoing.
If you want to read the briefs, I have an account on Scribd.
Yep.
You can find them there. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and I have a new podcast called Liberty Moving Podcast. It's on YouTube, where a couple of the episodes I did heavily address both of these litigations, and also if you want to support my work, easy way to do it also is just buy my books, because
Right.
the books kind of subsidize the law practice at this point.
Right. Absolutely. Well, thanks again, everybody, and we'll turn it back to you, Tyler.
Yeah. Yeah. So, let me switch cameras. I'm all doing things without looking. Brandon, stick your beautiful face in here. So we're closing. This week, I want to give 556 to Jeremiah Prime. This is, like I said, it's like bolds. Just because you didn't win this doesn't mean you don't get to have some. We have some here. Jeremiah, thank you for all that you do. Thank you for, weeks on end being here and in our chats. I appreciate you for that. I have nothing. I think this was a successful talk.
Yeah.
Anything?
No, I think we had a ton of participation. I think people had a lot of great questions. And we're just really excited for the timing and the opportunity to potentially set ourselves up for some historic court cases going through. I'm just, tough to sleep sometimes. As you can tell, I'm just so excited. So excited.
So excited to
I
be
just want to stick it right to Cuomo.
Oh. I tried donating $5 through the stream. I
Yeah.
was gonna put Cuomo sucks with 4 X's or whatever.
I was working on that. I'm working on that.
Okay.
I'm working on the text to speech. Soon, guys. I swear you're gonna be able to speak to us. It's gonna be so funny. You probably have
That's
to.
dangerous.
That's
though.
amazing.
With our customers.
No, please. I want you.
Oof.
I want you to give me
I'm nervous.
I want you to make me cry at night. I cry at night anyways, but I want you to make me cry at night. At least a $10 bid, please. I don't cry for less than $10.
That's not what I heard.
Other than that, I've got nothing, guys. If you don't have anything, you don't have anything.